we're going to talk about dot plots. A dot plot is a visual display of frequency distribution. So each data point is represented by a dot on a number line. So we're usually using this with numerical data. So we're going to do an example. During the regular softball season, a coach keeps track of the number of runs scored by her team for each of their game played. Use the data to construct a dot plot. So what this number line is going to represent, that's going to represent the number of runs. So this data right here is showing us the number of runs scored by her team. So somebody had 5 runs, somebody had 2 runs, 4 runs. So each dot is representing how many runs the team got during that game. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a dot plot using these data points. So I'm going to go ahead and see first is 5. So I'm going to put a dot at 5. And I want to try to keep them evenly spaced out in about the same size. And I'm going to do it every time I see, so like I had 5, 2, 4, and I'm going to put another one at 5, and so forth. So now I've plotted this data. So what does each dot represent? Well, each dot is representing a game. So what does that mean? That means that I had one game that had 0 runs. I had 2 games that only had 1 run. I had how many games had 4 runs? 7. 7 games had 4 runs. Okay. I had 1 game with 10 runs. So each one of these is representing a game. These numbers at the bottom are representing how many runs were scored in that game. Now we're going to go ahead and use the dot plot we just made to interpret it. And we're going to start by describing the center. The center is your mean, median, and mode. Just looking at this, I can figure out the mode. What occurs the most often? Not 10. Yes, that's the biggest number, but what occurs the most often is 4. So the mode of the data is 4. Now, a lot of times when we're doing this, it's best to kind of list out our data in order from least to greatest. Yes, the dots are there, but sometimes as we're trying to find the median, it's better just to list it out. So I have 0, 1, 1, 2. So here's my data points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the mean. How am I going to find the mean? I'm going to add it all up and then I'm going to divide. Divide by what? Well, how many data points do I have? I have 22 data points, so I'm going to divide it by 22. So when I add it all up, it's going to add up to 91. And now I'm going to divide that by 22. I'm going to use the calculator to do that. And when I do that, it's going to be like 4.136 blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to go ahead and round it to the nearest hundredths place. So I'm going to say it is 4.14. Now I need to find the median. So to do that, I'm going to kind of cross one out, cross one out, cross one out, cross one out, and so forth. And when I do that, I'm going to see that I'm left with 4 and 4, and in the middle of 4 is just 4. So my median is 4. Now I'm going to describe the spread. So the spread, we're going to talk about maximum value, and maximum value is your biggest number. So the maximum value is 10. And then our minimum value is your smallest number, and that's going to be 0. So what's that make our range? Our range, it's not on here, but our range would be 10 minus 0, which is 10. Now, we also have what's called an outlier. An outlier is something that's way off than the others, okay? It's out there lying by itself, and that's over here at this 10. Notice that it's away from everything else. So we do have an outlier, and the outlier is 10. So we're going to describe the shape of this dot plot. So the data has clusters. Now, what are clusters? Okay, clusters is where I've got a lot of it together, all at one point. So the clusters of data, if you look, is really from right here, this 3 to 5. That's where the most of my data points are. So I've got clusters from 3 to 5. It also has a peak. A peak is where it goes to the top. The peak is at 4. So there's a cluster of data points around the center, which makes its distribution symmetric. Below is a dot plot showing the shoe sizes of students on a 7th grade basketball team. So let's look at this. What does the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 represent? That's representing our shoe sizes. So what does each dot mean? Each dot is representing a student on the team. So that's their shoe size. So for example, I have 2 students that have shoe sizes of 8.5. 4 students have a shoe size of 9. How many students have a shoe size of 11? 1 student. So we're going to find the mean, the median, and the mode. Doing this, the mode is very easy to find. What do you see the most of? 9. So that's going to be my mode. To find the mean, what should I do? Add it all up and divide. What should I divide it by? Well, it looks like there are 9 data points, so I'm going to divide it by 9. So what are those data points? Well, it looks like I have 8.5, 8.5, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9.5, 10, and 11. So I'm going to start by adding all that up, and I'm going to get 83 and 5/10. And now I'm going to divide that sum by 9 because there's 9 data points. Now when I do that, I'm going to get 9.27 repeating. I'm going to go ahead and round that to the nearest hundredths place, which would round to 9 and 28/100ths. Now to find the median, I can either use what I have when I wrote it off to the side or the dot. So sometimes it's easier to do it this way. And I'm going to kind of cross one out, cross one out, cross one out, cross one out. And I have one right there, and that's going to be 9. So now I've described the center, I'm going to describe the spread. So if it looks like the maximum value is 11, and what's my minimum value? 8 and 5/10, 8.5. And are there any outliers? Well, it looks like there is kind of an outlier, just one further away, and that's 11. It's not much of an outlier, but it's kind of an outlier. What would the range be? I know, again, it doesn't say that on there, but we can still find the range. To find the range, I would do 11 minus 8 and 5/10. When I do that, I'm going to get 2.5. So there's your range. So the question is the data skewed? What it means is it is kind of skewed to the right, meaning that if you look at it, it kind of goes up and then over, and you've got this long tail to the right. So that means that the right side makes the data off balance.